It's the oldest cliché in storytelling, the most generic, big, bad, evil bad guy you can possibly think of. It's the all-consuming shadow of darkness that threatens life and light. You can't hide from it or escape to safety. It will hunt you down and find you. It cannot be reasoned with or intimidated, as it is death itself. We have an instinctive fear of it, and we fight against the dark with all our effort. The very first technology developed by humans was an effort to stave off the dangers of darkness. We harnessed fire to bring light, and hid in shelters with our magic source of light to shut out the dark creatures that hungered for us. Hi guys, I'm Mighty Mr. Mustache, the mightiest mustache in the universe. And I'm here with another Destiny lore video, Date with Destiny, the Darkness. But what is the darkness? A dark knight isn't evil, it's not sentient. Despite everything that we believe in our superstitions, we're beginning to understand the concept of dark matter and dark energy here in our real universe, and it certainly doesn't seem to be a seething mass of hatred for all life, or so we hope. The night sky does not care if we build spaceships and travel its emptiness, and the void between the stars is just that, a void. So why do we label our greatest enemy, the thing that almost wiped us out, the darkness? Probably for the same reason we call the Traveler's presence the light. It filled our world and helped us to see further and better than we ever had, and by contrast, the darkness wants to extinguish us completely and turn off all light like a switch, and all life along with it, plunging the universe into a tomb-like dark quiet that will quite literally last forever. The other big question is, why? In most conflicts, one side wants something the other has, or disagrees with a point of view the other holds. And sometimes one of those reasons is a convenient excuse to act on the other reason. But the darkness doesn't want Earth and the solar system for itself. It has no concern with conquering us at all. It simply wants us gone. That, at least, is the purpose behind the biggest faction representing the darkness we have met so far, the Ahamkara. I'll do a video on them in particular, but we need to touch on their perspective if we're to understand the reasons why the darkness is such a threat. The Ahamkara, or the Great Dragons, or the Great Worms, depending on what source you ask, are immortal beings that are found throughout the history of the universe, and our major source of knowledge about them comes from two places. The first is our own interaction with the dragons during the centuries following the Traveler's arrival. They were small creatures, ranging from the size of an iguana to maybe around the size of a horse, and they knew many secrets about the nature of reality and the universe that they were willing to share with us for a price. And in the desperate days of the fall of humanity, many Guardians did just that. The Ahamkara were information brokers, sometimes cryptic, but always helpful and willing. It was only with time and wisdom that we began to see the true nature of the bargains we were making, and severed the relationship by killing all of them we could find. And we thought that that was the end. Yes, in fact, Guardians did go out and cause what they thought was the extinction of the Ahamkara. But young Ahamkara are only one small part of their apparently vast civilization. The Hive know far more than we ever could have learned from our limited exposure, and their Books of Sorrow contain passages suggesting that the greatest and most powerful of the Ahamkara are the prime motivators behind what we call the darkness. We can't be certain that the Ahamkara are truly the top of the darkness food chain. After all, they could just be pawns in an even bigger plot. At the moment, though, the darkness is represented by the Hive, and they are puppets on the strings of the Ahamkara. The big question is, what do they want, and why do we need to die for them to get it? The answer to that question, or at least some strong clues pointing in that direction, are found in the grimoire entries from the Books of Sorrow. It would seem that the Ahamkara foresee an end to the universe, which makes sense from all the science we understand even today, and they want to prevent it. The Hive, for their part, just want to improve the lot of their people, and they were duped into their current situation out of desperation. Faced with a pathetically short life of misery trapped on a hellish nightmare of a planet, they were granted near infinite power and a form of immortality by these great worms. All they had to do was keep killing to keep existing, until one day in a far distant future, they would be the only living things left, and their worm gods would consume them and rule a dead universe that would endure forever. So the darkness fears death, and seeks to never die by being the only thing left alive. I know it doesn't make much sense to me either sometimes. They perceive life and evolution and the advancement of our civilizations as the prime factor in the dying of the universe. We are using up all of the energy, all of the resources that the universe needs to remain stable, to keep expanding. And one day it will no longer be able to hold itself together, and the Big Bang will reverse into a great collapse. We actually think that that might one day happen here in our real world outside of the game. Scientists are beginning to understand the concepts of the expansion of the universe and one day its eventual collapse and what they call the heat death of the universe. So it's not an unlikely or an unreasonable thing to think that a great, powerful, dark society who doesn't want that to happen might see us and our using up of energy and beings of light and existence as a threat. Since we don't concern ourselves with this idea, at least not enough to actually fear its eventuality, there is no common ground for us to find with the darkness. Those who ally with the light see life as a thing to be lived, and then put aside at its end. The legacy of our lives and the advancement of our species is our concern, not some billions of years distant shadow of doom that our minds simply cannot grasp. Only those races who the darkness finds sufficiently desperate are potential pawns in their plan, races like the Hive, and almost humanity, although even in the desperate days after the Traveler fell silent, we remained hopeful enough to reject the promises of the Ahamkara. So far, we've only touched on the Hive as servants of the dark, because really, only they truly serve it, as far as we know. The Vex are a strange race from beyond our dimension, and although it is because of the darkness that we are faced with them, they don't really worship and serve it. They seem more interested in adapting as much of it as they can into their idea of mechanical perfection, and merely mimic the Hive and its leadership. As for the Fallen, they have never been servants of the darkness as far as we can tell. They were like us, a race brought to the light, only to be abandoned by the Traveler when the darkness came hunting it. They survived their own fall and Dark Age, and have hunted the Traveler ever since, not to destroy it or even to fight the forces of the light, but to get it back, to once again be the chosen of the light. We'll get more into their story in a video all about them. There's so much great information to really dig into on the Fallen. It deserves more than just a footnote. That leaves the Cabal. On the surface, the Cabal don't seem to be servants of anything but themselves. There's never been any indication that they serve any higher power than the Cabal Empire, and we have never seen any alliance of Cabal with the Hive or the Ahamkara. In fact, the Cabal pretty much fight anything that comes close enough to get into a fight. That doesn't mean that they don't serve the darkness. Oryx, god of the Hive, is only one of three. He has two sisters, and one of them, Xivu Arath, is a god of war in all but name. She is literally Khorne from Warhammer for Destiny. Her aspect is conflict never-ending, conquest and destruction and eternal war. Does that sound familiar? We are introduced to the Cabal as a race who destroy entire planets just for being in their way. They have no word for retreat. They are expelled from their civilization when they march to war, and they are only permitted to return if they are victorious. It is entirely possible that this mighty empire of war and conquest serves Xivu Arath, even if maybe they don't know it. Oryx is proud and powerful and wants everyone to know that he is on top and in charge. But that doesn't mean that the other two are the same. They could easily be working from the shadows to move their pawns against the light. Beyond all of those things, there is the possibility that the darkness is a sentient thing on its own, along with the light. In my video on the light, I talked about the concept that the light could just be that, EM spectrum so advanced that it's sentient and conscious. The darkness could be similar in nature. We're beginning to understand the physics behind black holes, or at least think we understand it, and understand how the physics we think we understand breaks apart and stops playing by the rules when it gets near enough to a black hole. Literally, look it up. It's fascinating stuff if you can get through the science. Everything we understand about the way atoms are held together, the way gravity works, the theory of relativity, it all falls apart when you get close enough to a black hole. Perhaps the darkness, at least darkness millions of years beyond what we can understand, could be the force that opposes the light and breaks down what we see and what we like, but what makes us us. All of us, Guardians and Hive and every other living and sentient thing in the universe, could be serving, worshipping, and trying to understand a cosmic tug of war between literally electromagnetic energy and the massive piles of pure gravity that make up black holes. So that's what we know, and what we suspect about the darkness and its motives. Time will tell if any of these theories are right or wrong, and I'll be happy to hear what you think. You don't have to agree with me. Please let me know in the comments, and let me know what else you'd like to hear about. Thanks for being a part of this experience, and watch out for more on the next Date with Destiny. I've been your host, Mighty Mr. Mustache, the mightiest mustache in the universe. Have a great day.